Hello, my name is Erin Servey. I'm an undergrad at the Pennsylvania State University, and today I wanted to talk to you about something pretty serious, a pretty serious issue in our society: mental illness and mental illness awareness. There are 3 points I'm going to be making today. The first one is going to be some myths about what exactly is mental illness, just kind of give a summary of what it actually is compared to what some people think it is. The second thing I'm going to talk to you about is the stigma that exists about mental illness. And the third thing I'm going to talk about is how you can help someone that you know who has mental illness. So first off, what is mental illness? A lot of people, when they hear mental illness, for example, depression, they'll just think it's something that the person is in control of. They'll think that this person is either a freak, they're weak, they have really bad willpower, and that they really aren't different than anyone else. They just are weak or something. That's not the case. These people aren't crazy, they're not making it up. It is a real issue. It is biologically driven. I am personally not a professional, but through my friends and being a psychology major, I have learned more about it than most people. So I have a little bit more information than the average person. Again, I'm not a professional, so if you need a professional or you have any more serious questions, if you think you have a mental illness, or anything like that, contact a professional, because I'm not a professional. I'm just here to sort of give you what I know about the situation through what I've experienced. And I know that a lot of people, they don't see it as a biologically driven thing. For example, if you were to call in your teacher or your boss one day and you would say you had a broken leg and you called them and you said, "Sorry, I can't come into work today. I have a broken leg." They would be okay with that. You're physically broken. You have something physically wrong with you that people can see. With a mental illness, if you call in your boss or your teacher and you say, "I can't get out of bed today, I'm depressed," your boss probably most likely isn't going to be as understanding, because to people, they have this definition that depressed, I'm just using depression as an example. There are over 200 mental illnesses in the DSM-5, but I'm just going to use depression as a example. People have this idea that if you're depressed or something like that, it just means you're sad or you're down in the dumps for the day. It's something you should be able to control. It's not sadness, though, as most people think it is. It is a biologically driven, it can be genetic. If you have a lot of people in your family, you're more prone to get it. It is an illness. Why do you think people call it an illness? Because it is an illness. Just like if anyone would have cancer or have the flu, it's the same concept. And of course, if you had cancer or you had the flu, you would act differently too. It's not a personality trait. Secondly, I would like to talk about the stigma that revolves around mental illness. For mental illness, especially things like schizophrenia, bipolar, a lot of things come from the media and TV, movies, even books that lead people to believe that if you have one of these mental illnesses, you are insane. For example, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a story, but it leads people to think, when they think bipolar, that's what they think of. They think of someone who has like two completely different personalities. And actually, that's not what it is. But then a lot of times, people will see stories in the news about shootings and things that happen like that. And oftentimes the news will mention that, oh, this person has Asperger's or something like that. So then people will assume, because that's all they know, that's where they get most of their information about mental illness, is through the media. That's where most people get their information about mental illness. So there's that. People think they're crazy, prone to shootings. In reality, that's not true. In reality, people with mental illness are more prone to be bullied than to be the people bullying, or in this case, shooting people. Another thing is, people have this idea that treatment doesn't help. Because of the stigma that exists about mental illness, there are only 36% of those who have it who actually get treated. Did you know that 1 in 4 people have a mental illness? Look around you. If you look around you and you see people and there isn't a single person you know of that has one, then there's probably someone you know who has one and just isn't telling you. And they're probably not telling you because they're afraid of being labeled because of the stigma that exists. So currently in our society, in our country, there's 36% of people with mental illness who aren't getting treatment. Okay, well, treatment isn't that helpful, right? It's not going to help anyway. No, that's wrong too, because actually, people who get treatment, the first treatment they get, they have a 70 to 90% chance of getting better. After that, sometimes people, it takes them 1 or 2 tries, like maybe they'll be given the wrong medicine for them, so they'll have to get another medicine. After that, the percentage is closer to 90%. 90% of people with a mental illness who get treatment will get better and will get to being their old selves again. As well, a really, really awful thing in our society, mental illness really can lead to suicide. It leads to thoughts of suicide. It leads to cutting, because these people are dealing with so much pain and so much anguish because they are suffering, they are going through these mental illnesses while the world around them will think they're crazy if they tell anyone. So most of the time, the only place they can go is to cutting, or maybe they'll just feel so bad, they'll just want to end their lives. Even though not many people with a mental illness will end their lives, out of the number of people in our country who commit suicide, 90% of them have a mental illness. That should say something to our society. Hello, wake up. 90% of the people who kill themselves probably do it because they don't have anywhere else to turn. Maybe they haven't gotten treatment. That's why they turn to suicide, because they just can't fight it anymore. Because they're so afraid to actually tell anyone that they don't tell anyone because of this stigma that exists. Thirdly, what I would like to talk to you about is how to help someone you know who has a mental illness. Okay? So there are 3 ways you can help someone with a mental illness. First of all, you have to realize you are not a professional. You should not diagnose your friends because you are not trained to do so. If you think they have a mental illness that they're not telling people about, just talk to them about it. You can't, or get them to a professional, because you're not a professional, so you can't do that. Also, in relation to this, you have to recognize that you're not a professional, so you can't put pressure on yourself to help your friend or family member. You might think, oh, I'm going to be this person's savior. I can help them by being there for them. No, you can't. You can help a little bit, but you can't completely help them because you're not a professional. It's completely out of your hands, and you shouldn't put that pressure on yourself. Second of all, you need to realize that mental illness is not a personality trait. If someone with a mental illness tells one of their friends that they have a mental illness, and then the person they tell runs the opposite direction or treats them completely differently because of their mental illness, that will just make them close up, and they won't want to tell anyone anymore after this. Because the thing is, they're already expecting people to act this way because they know. It seems like the only people who realize stigma that exists are the people that either have a mental illness or know someone who does. So they realize it, and if they tell someone and this person reacts in a way that confirms their suspicion, it'll just make them not want to tell people even less, and then they might not get treatment. The third thing I wanted to talk to you that tell you that you can do is I really want to emphasize this isn't a hard thing, but you just need to be there for them. You just need to be there. You need to make them feel comfortable enough so that they know if they were to tell you, you'd be okay with it. And if they do tell you, you need to be okay with it. Because if you're not a true friend. Maybe you need to learn more about it. Because obviously if you treat them differently or run the opposite direction, then it's not going to be good for them. And in order for them to get better, you're going to have to just be there. Because a lot of people with mental illness, I know, they don't like to talk about it because they don't want to be treated differently. Because people do treat them differently if they know. And so they have learned through all this stuff that I shouldn't tell people or I'll be labeled. And that fear and shame just makes them not want to tell people. Another thing, there does exist organizations for this, like NAMI, Active Minds. There are organizations for this to help awareness for mental illness, but I honestly didn't know about them. I had to look them up myself, which means they're not very widespread and not a lot of people, the awareness isn't spreading. At Penn State this past October, I found out that someone held a mental illness awareness week on campus, and looking back, I didn't know about it. I don't know anyone who did know about it. There might have been a few people that knew about it. I'm going to put the links to some of these organizations down below so people can learn about them and see what they do, and maybe the word can get out more. Also, I wrote an essay on this topic too. It's more in depth and it may cover some things I may have forgotten to talk about. I'll put that down there too, because I think everyone just needs to realize and learn more about all these things. Mainly just the stigma and that it does exist, because a lot of people don't realize it exists. And it does, and it's just pushing these people. I've had friends who, the only way that people with mental illness, they can deal with their mental illness is by talking about it in a way that isn't serious. So I've known people to joke about their mental illness, and this isn't something they should be joking about. This is something they should feel comfortable talking about it. They shouldn't have to joke about something that isn't funny. They should be able to tell it to people, and people should be okay with it. Another thing is, I would just love if more people learned about this. That's why I'm making this video, and I wrote the essay and everything. It would just be awesome. So I'm going to put the suicide hotline down below, just in case you have a friend who's suicidal maybe, or if you've been suicidal. Don't turn there, because it might seem like a good idea at the time, but it's not. There are people who are willing to help you. There's a hotline for it you can call, even if you just need someone to talk to. Oftentimes people with mental illness, it just gets really lonely and they feel like they don't have anyone to turn to. I just want to help let people know that you're not alone. 1 in 4 people have a mental illness. You're not alone, trust me. And if you don't see a lot of people who have mental illness like you're not looking hard enough, or maybe they're just not telling you because they're so afraid. Also, I'll put my Twitter down below too, in case anyone wants to tweet me or message me any questions. I feel like I may have forgotten something or not covered something. Or if you just have questions, contact me and I'll help you get the information, whether it be from my own knowledge or through a professional, because the best thing you can do if you're in a situation like this is to get help from a professional if you haven't already. That's the biggest thing I can emphasize. And I believe that is all. So thank you for watching.